Hello and welcome to the Wednesday check-in here on Landy's Crypto Corner. Today is March 19th, 2025, and well, we're on the other side of the FOMC meeting. As expected, there was no change in the Fed funds rate, but we did get a good market response post press conference with Jerome Powell, where essentially what it boiled down to was the press trying to pressure him into saying tariffs bad. And he said, yeah, there is a little bit of inflation or transitory inflation when it comes to the tariff side of things, unlike the March of 2020 global economic shutdown in response to the virus. When it comes to tariffs, there is a bit of inflation on one side, but there's also deflation on the other side, which they didn't talk about. The media didn't want to focus on that part. But Powell did indicate and basically straight out tell them when asked about QT, and at which they are decreasing the rate of QT from 25 billion to 5 billion. So, the market received that positively. Also, not too much in terms of change from the outlook. And he left the door open for the possibility of, modifying the outlooks for how the Fed is going to handle some of the economic data going forward. And the market liked it for now. Now, for Bitcoin, we have now seen a downtrend break. So, prior, on Monday, I did discuss kind of what we were looking at as a follow-up to last Friday's video. And that was, I believe we were right here. Yeah, so we had seen the high put in at 85,318 last Friday. And now, of course, we had the Wednesday session closing above this swing high. And over the weekend, we did actually get a closing high here. So this is a downtrend break now with a higher low swing in place. And of course, this is a higher low close with the Wednesday candle closing at 86,877. And we're seeing the Thursday session, which just opened, now pushing up slightly above into the $87,000 area. So, we got what it was that we were looking for in terms of a trend break to the upside and a possible trend reversal in play. The next big high to take out, of course, is going to be the high here at $92,800 to $93,000. I will tell you, bulls have to recover above this swing high at $95,000 up here, just slightly over $95,000, and start to recover this consolidation to really start flipping things bullish to test further up into this range here. So, and it first of all has to get into the range, and we'll go ahead and take a look at support and resistance and kind of follow up with where we have, where we left off on Monday. And that's going to require us to turn on the local support and resistance now that we do have a bit of a trend break and possible trend shift or trend reversal in the making here. And, we talked about this on Monday. Bulls need to recover $85,000, which was the first bearish candle post-expansion out of the range down below here. And that was acting as some pretty heavy resistance and became a key pivot point on the lows here. Now we do have a major low in at 78,550 here on a close, and of course that 76,555 swing low. So, I had mentioned all the way back here when we were still trading in the range that if Bitcoin dropped, the essentially 88,700 to $92,000 range, to keep an eye, shorter term time frames, which we saw in the first spike down was, around that 87,400 or so. Well, guess what? That's also one of the areas that is going to be key on the way back up, was the close open over here of this little consolidation before pushing up to the new all-time high. And then, of course, $85,000. We saw kind of a front run of that. Then it closed below, big spike down to the $78,000. The big run up on some well, it was mean reversion in terms of price action. It was looking pretty beat up to the downside after that big move. So a big move back up also got exacerbated by some posts by President Trump. We saw a higher low that could have potentially set up a trend reversal setup if it had broken back above and closed above $95,000, but instead it went right into that, you could call it 89 to 92 right here, and spiked the basis band here before making a new lower low. So what's key to watch from here? It's going to be right in this zone up here. And we can actually, I identified this earlier today just to kind of give an example of breaking above the basis band, which during the session, it's still Wednesday for me, but the Thursday candle is open, or the Thursday session is open. But I was basically in some different chats going, hey, we need to see 85 broken above, and then above there, then we're looking probably pretty good to go test by the upper first standard deviation right here by the 1.168, which of course is this higher low wick right here on the daily. Also coincides with a major backtested fib level, which is an extension from the prior cycle high to bear market low. In this case, 16.8% above the $69,000 all-time high of the prior cycle at 88,700. That is also right around where the upper first is. And then slightly above there, we have the $92,000 area, upper second, pretty much coinciding with this, 92.8 or slightly above that now overhead resistance, which I do think is going to be significant in the lower term time frames at minimum. Excuse me. Bulls need to recover 93.5 above there to go test by the upper third, which is right around the bottom side of this consolidation, in the upper $95,000 to $96,000 range. So that would look good for Bitcoin to at least test the top side of this consolidation, just shy of $100,000, and then start making its way, if it can recover above there, to 101 to 104 by the 1272, and then anywhere above there, it would be looking back to the all-time high zone up there, 106 to 108, and then of course the all-time high at 109.4. So it looks pretty good for right now in terms of the trend break and the higher low swing and close in place. But obviously there's still a lot of overhead resistance that the bulls need to work through. And we need to see how price reacts if and when it gets back to 88.7 to that 92K, that primary zone of support before, where we saw all these swings and closes coming in. So that's kind of my take on this. Again, back below 85, and it's likely going to run the higher low swing here around that lower first, around 81.7 to $82,000. Anywhere below there, fair game between the lower first, lower second, down by the close open here at 78.5, and that swing low at 76.5 or so. Anywhere below there, obviously, we're looking down to our 73,835 to $68,000. The top side of that prior consolidation, kind of the big key weekly levels. If it does happen to come back down here, we'll just refine some of the daily levels inside of there for some more granular targets. But right now we got to see how this plays out back to the upside. I want to see. I want to see some progress from the bulls in terms of recovering some key levels, because right now it's just floating between major overhead resistance and major downside supports. So we do need to see how price reacts upon testing that overhead resistance again. So the prior two times the big candles through, but we had basically the twin towers that of course resulted in a run back down and a bounce back up that found it as heavy resistance. So we'll just have to keep an eye on that for the rest of the week and see how we start coming into the essentially it's the last full week. Next week is the last full week of the month. And we'll have a lot to talk about coming into the last full week. Excuse me. But we have the end of not just the monthly, but the quarterly, and that's that big Q1 to Q2 transition that I've talked about. Of course, as we get into next week, we'll talk about, what I'm going to be watching for the start of the second quarter, right? Much of this stuff you've probably heard me discuss on various Spaces events, but we'll kind of touch on that in the recorded video format as well. So let's go ahead and check on a few other things. Let's go ahead and see where we've got. Yep. So there is our second big confirmed drive of bullish divergence. So realistically, you're going to have, it depends on your count. If you're counting from this low where the bullish divergence is stemming from, then you've kind of almost got, you've got three lows that are linked, but two confirmed drives of bullish divergence. We have a regular stochastic momentum indicator is pointed to the upside above 81.5. That's good. So, the move still has legs. And in reality, the bands are still fairly wide, and now they're starting to flatten and even curl up a little bit. In this case, when looking at the bands, it is kind of a range. To the downside, I would look at the lower second as an initial pivot if it did head back down there. Again, if it would have to meet all of the closing criteria that I discussed just a moment ago. To the upside, I'd be very aware around the upper second and that swing high. Just slightly above that now overhead resistance at 92. So that 88.7 to 92, or you can call it 89 to 92. Just above there, we have that upper second. So we do want to see some constructive price action moving in and closing above there, and then subsequently going up to get expansion to reclaim that 95 and this consolidation where this move down originated from. And I think that's pretty much it. No, no, you know what I did want to check on? That's right. So 2-day did just open. This was an expansion to expansion retest on the 2-day. So expansion through, a little bit of mean reversion on the swings, and even a close or two back above the lower first here, and then a retest of the lower second before bouncing mean reversion back to the basis. It's right at 89. So again, that's this low over here, which is also a weekly swing higher low. So we do need to be cognizant that this is still in the bearish half on a 2-day time frame, but that doesn't mean that it can't get above there and even run to the upper first. And guess where that is? 95 to right around $95,000. So essentially, it's right where this swing high is. So it's right in the same area in the bottom side of this consolidation prior to the breakdown. So let's look at Stoke momentum. We still have that one drive of bullish divergence there. Stoke momentum is pointed up on the 2-day. $81,000 is the pivot. 3-day also closed with the Wednesday candle. Again, we saw continued expansive posture. That is now starting to get its mean reversion look. And we've got, 92.3 is the basis band overhead. Upper first is just right at $100,000, just slightly above this, this high here, that 99.5 swing fail on the daily, especially in the lower term time frames. That was concerning that Bitcoin at the time couldn't regain that $100,000 number. But we do have Stoke momentum pointed to the upside. 83,600 is going to be the momentum pivot there for a regular Stoke. We do not have any bullish divergence in play right now, so we do need to be cognizant on some of these longer term time frames. If we do start to see any kind of higher highs, the last, technically, this is going to be a lower high, but if we see a higher high above 95, or even the close here is we're going to be working off close opens at 87,250. Where is RSI? Yeah, so it would be in continuation territory, but I would still give it a chance. Actually, we can kind of cross that bridge when we get to it, but the pivot is going to be important. That 83.6 or so for the 3-day. 4-day we have closing on it's going to be the rest of today's candle, right, which is our Thursday candle, and it's going to close on Friday. So we will actually be talking about this on Friday during the wrap-up. If we do see a close back above 82,750 or so, we would get a momentum shift. We'd also get well, let's see, where is the SMA? It's at 89, so it would have to reclaim that red zone overhead. Um, yeah, it's getting close. Nice tap on the bearish control zone there for the 4-day. Not too much to make of this other than this basis band being just slightly above the weekly higher low close open. Momentum shift again for the 4-day would be 82,726. So, anywhere above $85,000, I think is a good place to play in for Bitcoin, even if it doesn't immediately recover that 88.7, 89 to 92 area. Let's look at the 5 days. That's going to be closing with the Friday. Again, let's just double check where everything is. Just shy of $95,000. We have the basis band. And we are seeing that this is, compression to downside expansion. Lower first is just overhead at 88, nearly 88 and a half. So do be aware of that. But we are looking at a possible momentum shift above 83.3. And then, of course, if we were just to, remind ourselves where the weekly is, that's at $96,000. So again, where is $96,000? If we turn on, the weekly we'll obviously touch on, but if we turn on local support and resistance, just understand that is, that is essentially right around the failure, right? Just over $95,000. We have the basis band. This is the lower first right here that we've seen a lower term time frame tap on, which is at 87,600. Nearly got to hit that. If it does recover the red zone, we've got the weekly higher low, and just above it we have the basis band right around the next big high that Bitcoin needs to recover here. And then we could essentially look to $96,000 where that pivot is as being the top, right around that key level the Bitcoin compressed and then broke down from on the daily. Above there, we have the upper first, of course, coming in at 101. So we do have some confluent areas of interest, including that lower third right at the top side of the prior consolidation at 73,835 or so. Yeah, nothing too crazy going on here other than, we've finally got a daily trend break and trend reversal set up. So we do need to see higher highs and higher lows from here. Obviously, it's going to be higher highs from here. So that's the trend break. We need to see continued higher lows from here. And we'll kind of gauge wherever this puts in a high and then set the criteria for that. But right now, essentially, Bitcoin trading above this swing higher low here at 81,125 is going to be the good area. But realistically, you don't want to see Bitcoin trading back below the basis band at $85,000 on the daily. Let's double check real quick on where Ethereum is. I hope it set a low. I know it set a low. So finally setting a low. Yay, Ethereum. Did you get any bullish divergence? You did. Good job. What is the momentum pivot going to be? It's going to be 1860. So it's got a little bit of distance on that. Let's go to the 2-day real quick. Is that turning? Yep, 1878. 3 days going to be up 1875. And then 4-day, we'll just check on this on Friday, 1971 for the pivot. 5-day would be 2200 essentially. Look, the real thing is like above 2300 is where things change. That's the weekly momentum pivot, but that's also the big weekly overhead area. This was the red zone. I pointed out why this is the red zone, also finding resistance around the basis band. This is the big weekly level that Ethereum was holding for quite a while. We need to see Ethereum recover this 2300. Then things could change also just above there, even at 2320 to break the downtrend. Technically, you've got a lower high swing to higher low, but realistically, it's 2300 to 2320. Otherwise, this is, a retest of a breakdown, so it's a bearish retest. And for Ethereum's sake, you don't want to see that. So all the ETH maxis pray that Bitcoin holds up and starts recovering the range above. Same goes for Solana. I know there's some bullish news going on with Solana. Solana's in a little bit better position. In fact, I've shown this before. It's kind of where ETH was before ETH broke down, right? It's sitting on a major support level The next big area to watch would be inside of the weeklies here between essentially 120 to 100. Just to be general, but nice close open right on the top side that support it at 125. So for the daily, we do have a little bit more uptrending structure here that's being built in terms of higher swings, higher low swings. But we haven't seen a downtrend break. Obviously, it is a little bit easier for Solana to get a downtrend break above, you can just call it 137 and back above the basis. And then the big swing to take out from there is 152, 150 to 152, which is right around the upper first. So Sol investors want to see this higher low result in in this lower high break to actually break the downtrend with a trend reversal setup in place. And then it's just a matter of holding this most recent low at 121. And you don't want to see price closing below the 120 region, or it's going to be running this low at 112 and possibly down to that $100. So that's the big one. Solana looks fine for momentum right now. Again, this is all bearish structure still, so we need to see it change. We need to see the structural change, and then we can start to really maybe get excited about it going and cracking above some of those key levels. 122 is going to be the pivot for the daily. 2 days is going to be 118. So that's looking all right. Looking encouraging. 122 for the 3 day. And then we'll get into, obviously, we'll check on this on Friday. But 125 on the 4 day, it is starting to turn. 5 days going to be that essentially 118. So that looks pretty good. It's just got to hold the lows, essentially. And then go and start breaking some of these key swing levels in between this major weekly support and, falling out of this prior support area over here. Now go and test resistance around 169. Nice. And recover it. And again, same as Bitcoin, you're going to see that this is going to be a common thing. 180 needs to be cracked above. The twin tower candles need to be taken out on a close. I think just to check on Ethereum where it's the same thing. I would actually, because it's such a key level, if Ethereum breaks above 2320, it's going to look really good. Obviously below the twin towers here at 2550, it's still not great, but Ethereum needs to reclaim this level on the weekly. Start changing that macro picture a little bit. That we'll be talking about next week. End of the month conversations, end of the quarter conversations, and then that's kind of it. That's all I got for you today. I hope that you all have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you are in the world. Please trade safe, and of course, as always, stay safe. With all that being said, Landy out. Take care.